tonight, we're going to start reading the Nutcracker. Have fun.
Alright, come on, Jay.
Okay. Here.
Oh, this is a long book, Jackson.
Yes.
This is a long story. I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing.
Just read the whole thing for me.
I can't read the whole thing.
Start all over.
It's too long, Jack. This book is too long. Let me go through and see how many pages. Okay. I'm going to try to read as much as I can, okay?
Okay.
Alright. It was after dark on Christmas Eve when little Marie and her brother Fritz had their Christmas presents. For presents are given on Christmas Eve in Germany, where Marie and Fritz lived in the last century. They had some wonderful presents too. Dolls, toys, soldiers. Hello? I'll call you back after I'm done reading Jackson's bedtime story. Okay. Let me see. Okay, they had dolls, toys, soldiers, picture books, and a beautiful toy castle their grandfather, old Mr. Drosselmeyer, had made them. However, the present Mary liked best of all was a nutcracker in the shape of a dear little man with a funny, kindly face, and dressed in fine clothes. She was very sad when her brother Fritz, playing roughly with Nutcracker, broke his jaw. Marie tied poor Nutcracker's head up in her handkerchief and nursed him for the rest of the evening, sitting on in the living room with all the other toys after the rest of the family had gone to bed. You never read this book before?
I did.
So why you want me to read it again? You just want to read a bedtime story?
Okay.
Okay. Just as Marie put Nutcracker away in the toy cupboard, the clock struck 12. And on the stroke of midnight, some very strange things began to happen. Mice came out from behind the curtain and up through the cracks in floorboards. A whole army of mice led by a terrible great mouse king who had 7 heads. Then all the dolls and soldiers and all the other toys came to life. Nutcracker himself drew his little sword, waved it in the air, and shouted, "My loyal subjects, you will stand by me in battle." "Yes, sir, we'll follow you to death or glory," replied the other toys. Under Nutcracker's command, the toys fought a great battle with the mice. At last, however, Nutcracker was driven right back to the glass-fronted toy cupboard with only a few of his toy soldiers. The Mouse King himself scurried up, all 7 throats squealing triumphantly. Nutcracker was in a great danger, and Marie watched and couldn't bear it any longer. "Oh, poor Nutcracker," she sobbed. Hardly knowing what she was doing, she took off her left shoe and threw it into the middle of the mice, aiming at their king. Then everything swam in front of her eyes. She felt a pain in her left arm, and she fell onto the floor faint. It's the picture.
Yes. Turn the next page.
Okay. When Marie woke, she was lying in her bed with the doctor and her mother beside her. "Oh, Mother, have the nasty mice gone away? Is Nutcracker all right?" she whispered. "Now, Marie, you mustn't talk nonsense," said her mother. "What a fright you gave us. You must have stayed up so late playing that you felt sleepy, and when something startled you, you put your arm through the glass in the toy cupboard door and cut yourself quite badly. I found you on the floor there with all the toys lying around you. Nutcracker was beside you, and your left shoe was on the floor a little way off." And when Marie tried to tell her mother and the doctor about the great battle, they wouldn't believe her, but said she had a temperature and must stay in bed for a few days. Poor Marie was very bored, but one evening Godfather Drosselmeyer came to see her and Fritz. To her delight, He brought her nutcracker back with his jaw mended, but he's not the most handsome of all fellows. You must admit, said Godfather Drosselmeyer. If you like, I'll tell you how the Nutcracker family came to be so ugly. Have you ever heard the story of Princess Perlipat, Mistress Muse? The Witch and the Watchmaker is called The Tale of the Horrid Nut. Some months before the birth of Princess Perlipat, Godfather Drosselmeyer told the children, her father, the king, invited some of the other kings and a princess to a great banquet of sausages. The queen herself made the sausages in a big golden pot, and the moment came when fat bacon for the mixture was to be cut up and fried in silver pans. As the bacon began to sizzle, the queen heard a tiny voice whispering, "Give me some of that bacon, sister. I'm a queen too, and I'd like to join the feast." The speaker was a Mistress Muse who claimed to be the queen of Musalio and held court under the kitchen stove. "Come along, Mistress Muse," said the kind queen, "and you may have some of my bacon." But Mistress Muse's 7 great rough sons came out too, fell upon the bacon, and ate nearly all of it. When the sausages were served, the king was in dismay. "Not enough bacon," he gasped, vowing to be revenged on Mistress Muse for stealing it, and he called in his court watchmaker, whose name said Godfather Drosselmeyer, happened to be Drosselmeyer just like mine, and who made some clever little mouse traps to catch Mistress Muse's 7 sons. One day while the queen was cooking her husband's supper, Mistress Muse reappeared. "My sons are dead," said she, "so take care the mouse queen doesn't bite your own little princess in two." When Princess Perlipat was born, there had never been a prettier baby. Her little face was soft and pink and white. Her eyes were bright blue, and she had shiny curly golden hair. Everyone was delighted except the queen, who worried over Mistress Muse's threat. She had Perlipat's cradle very closely guarded. Two nurses had to sit beside the cradle, and by night there were 6 more nurses in the room, each holding a cat on her lap, stroking it all the time to keep it awake and purring. For the court astronomer had said this was the only way to keep Mistress Muse away. One night, however, one of the nurses woke from a deep sleep. All of the other nurses and the cats were asleep too, and a huge ugly mouse was standing on its hind legs with a dreadful head full of princess faces. The nurse leaped up. With a cry of horror, the other woke too, and Mistress Muse scolded away. Little Perlipat began wailing miserably. When the nurses looked at her, they were horrified. Her angelic pink and white face had changed to a fat, shapeless head on a tiny, shriveled body. The king and queen were dreadfully upset. The king blamed it all on the court watchmaker for catching Mistress Muse's sons in his mouse traps, and decreed that he must find out how to restore the princess to her old shape, or he would be beheaded. Okay. Want me to keep reading?
Yes.
Okay. With the help of the court astronomer, you want me to keep reading, Jack?
Yes.
Okay, I will. With the help of the court astronomer, the court watchmaker discovered the spell on the princess was broken if she had ate the sweet kernel of the cracker nut. It must be bitten open by a man who had never shaved and never worn boots, and he must give her the nut with his eyes shut and take 7 steps backward without stumbling before he opened them again. So the watchmaker set out in search of the cracker nut. He had been on his travels for 15 years when he went to see his cousin, a doll maker, and told him his story. To his surprise and delight, the doll maker had the cracker nut itself in his possession, and the doll maker's son, young Drosselmeyer, who had never shaved or worn a pair of boots, was just the man to open it. But there were other young men too who wanted to try cracking the nut, since the king had promised his daughter's hand in marriage to anyone who could do it. Nobody could crack its shell, However, however, until however, until young Drosselmeyer tried. And then the princess ate the kernel and became beautiful again. But Mistress Lucy appeared once more, tripped young Drosselmeyer up as he took the last of his 7 steps backwards with his eyes shut, and turned him as ugly and wooden looking as the princess had been before. He was just like a nutcracker. Oh, take that ugly nutcracker away, cried Princess Curlycat, and he was thrown out. But the court astronomer consulted the stars and saw that the young Drosselmeyer could still break the spell if he defeated the 7-headed Mouse King. Mistress Lucy's son, born after the other 7 were dead, and found a lady to love him in spite of his ugliness. So that is the tale of the hard nut, said Godfather Drosselmeyer. When Mary could play in the living room again and saw the nutcracker in the toy cupboard, it suddenly struck her that the tale her godfather had told her must be Nutcracker's own story. Of course, he was really Godfather's nephew, who had been bewitched by Mistress Lucy, for she felt quite sure that the court watchmaker was Godfather Drosselmeyer himself. And she told her that the Princess Curlycat was a nasty, ungrateful girl. Not long after this, one moonlight night, Marie was awakened by a strange sound in her bedroom, a pattering and a squeaking and a whistling. Then she saw the Mouse King coming through a hole in the wall. He scurried around the room, his eyes and his crowns all sparkling, and then he jumped on Marie's bedside table, squealing, "See, you must give me your sugar plums and marzipan, little girl, or I'll eat your nutcracker up." Next evening, Marie put her sugar plums and marzipan down in the foot of the toy cupboard, and they were gone in the morning. But soon, the Mouse King was back, demanding Marie's collection of little sugar dolls. Another night, he said he must have her books and her nice new dress. Marie was in despair. "Oh, Nutcracker, how can I help you now?" she said, picking her nutcracker up. "Even if I do give the Mouse King my books, my dress, he'll still want more." But to her amazement, Nutcracker grew warm in her hand. "If only you can get me a sword, I'll do the rest," he told her, before he turned too stiff, cold, and wood again. "I can give Nutcracker a sword," said Fritz, when Marie had told him this whole story, and they took a silver sword off one of his toy soldiers and buckled it on Nutcracker. Marie could not sleep that night for terror, and about midnight she thought she heard a great many strange noises in the living room, and a loud squeak. Then there came a soft knocking at her door, and a little voice saying, "Don't worry, dear Marie, good news." Putting on her shawl, Marie opened the door, and there stood Nutcracker, with his blood-stained sword in one hand. "Dear lady," he told her, "you alone gave me strength and courage to kill the wicked Mouse King." And he gave Marie all the Mouse King's 7 crowns in tokens of his victory. "Now," he went on, "there are many wonderful things I can show you if you'll just come with me." Nutcracker led Marie to the big old wardrobe, where he saw a pretty little cedarwood staircase coming down through the sleeve of Father's traveling coat. They climbed the stairs, and when they reached the top, dazzling light and delicious fragrance met them. They were in the Prince Nutcracker's own country, and Marie admired all the beautiful sights as they went over Sugar Candy Meadow and to a wonderful little wood called Christmas Wood, where gold and silver fruit hung from the branches, and then on beside Orange Brook Lemonade River, and past Almond Milk Lake. Next, they came to Gingerbread Village on the Honey River and Barley Sugar Town, but still, they went on to the Princess Capital City in a boat shaped like shell that carried them down a rose-red river. They landed in a pretty thicket called Sugar Plum Grove, and there ahead of us is the capital, Candy City. Nutcracker told Marie in the middle of the city stood Marzipine Castle, a fight sight with its 100 towers shining with lights. Four beautiful ladies who must surely be princesses came out and embraced Nutcracker, who introduced them to Marie as his sisters, telling them how she had saved his life. If she hadn't thrown her shoe at just the right moment, or got me that soldier's sword, I'd be dead now, he said. The ladies flung their arms around Marie, and they all went into the hall with walls made of sparkling crystal. The princesses set to work to prepare a delicious meal, using plates and dishes of delicate china and silver and gold, pots and pans. Watching them pressing fruit, pounding spices, and grated sugar, Marie wished she could help. The prettiest of Nutcracker's sisters seemed to guess her thoughts, for she handed her a little golden pestle and a mortar, said, "My dear, would you crush a little candy for me?" So Marie happily pounded away, while Nutcracker told his sisters about the battle. But somehow, bills of silvery lips were rising. There was a singing and a whirring and a humming in the air. And Marie herself rose on swelling waves, higher and higher, up and up. Bump! Marie fell from a great height. When she opened her eyes, she was in her own little bed, and there stood Mother. "Oh, Mother," cried Marie, "where do you think Nutcracker, who is really Godfather Drosselmeyer's nephew, took me last night?" And she told her mother all about the adventures, insisting that they had not been just a dream. For after all, she had the Mouse King's 7 crowns to show. When no one would believe her, however, Marie stopped talking about that wonderful fairy kingdom, but she couldn't forget it. And one day, when Godfather Drosselmeyer was repairing the clock in the house, she sat by the toy cupboard looking at Nutcracker. "Oh, if you were really alive," she burst out, "I know I wouldn't act like Princess Perlipat and despise you after you gave up your handsome face and figure for me." Then there was such a bang and a jolt that she fell off her chair in a faint. When she woke up, Mother was bending over her saying, "Look, here's your godfather's nephew come to visit." And there stood a young man, rather small but very handsome and finely dressed. When he was alone with Marie, he thanked her for all she had done in breaking the spell that had turned him into a nutcracker. So soon, Marie engaged to be married to Godfather Drosselmeyer's nephew, and after a year and a day, he sent a golden carriage drawn by a silver horse's car. And so far as I know, Marie and her Nutcracker prince rule the kingdom of sweets to this day. The end.
That was a good story.
That was a good story. You ready to go to bed now?
Yes.
Okay. Good night.